Hey guys, it's Dasher Zach back with another review, this time of the Inkot G23 V2. Yes, that colorway is sick, and yes, I am talking about a GPX clone yet again. Inkot has done two key things with this mouse, and that it's not only lighter than their V1, but also lighter than all of the other GPX clones, and they also now have their own custom Huano collab switches in there, which in my opinion is a standout feature of the mouse. I'll let you guys know right off the bat, this mouse is an absolute banger, but is it the GPX clone for you, and the best GPX clone there is, period? Let's find out. So here we have it, the Inkot G23 V2. I swear that took 50 tries. Anyway, this is Inkot's new GPX clone, the successor to the V1, except for we have dropped 18 grams, we're no longer hot swappable, and we have brand new custom collab Huano switches in this mouse, which is a very exciting feature. It's also got this sick colorway. This is the non-pro version, which is a 3395, only 1K pulling. I grabbed this version because I wanted to get this review out to you guys as soon as possible, so you can see how good or not good this mouse actually was. It also comes with some nice grip tape, and I love how they match the cable to the colorway of the mouse. But enough babbling, you're here to see how good this mouse is. Let's get right into it. Coming to the clicks, this is using the custom Huano Inkot collab purple switch. And yes, I opened up the manual. I read the actual manual for this mouse to get the name of these switches, and that's all I got. I will say right out of the box, I was not sure about these switches, but after using them and testing, I am absolutely in love with them. I've had to workshop how I would refer to them for quite a while here, and this is what I've come down to. They remind me of the light spammability of Zippy switches in the old Jules mice, and it's sort of like those switches had a baby with a perfect Huano transparent blue shell pink dot implementation, which makes sense given this is a collab with Huano. In reality, this might just feel like a really good Huano transparent blue shell pink dot, and I may be exaggerating the Zippy part, but to me that's how it felt. They're a medium light actuation, and in reality they are the absolute most spammable mechanical switches that I've used in a very long time. I've not had a single time where I tried to click this and it did not rebound and continue to click in the perfect sort of rhythmic pattern. If there's one thing with these switches in this mouse I can see people potentially not loving is that they feel ever so slightly plasticky, I guess. But I also just think that's a characteristic of how light and spammable they are. They're not light to a fault, and they're not medium. They're, I would say, squarely between light and medium, yet very tactile and snappy at the same time. They're usually much more enjoyable to use than I would say the Omron 100 millions that we've been seeing spammed in mice these days. Those switches are fine, but I don't love them. And honestly, with the implementation of these switches in this mouse, they've sort of moved up into my upper echelon of mechanical switch rankings, although I'd like to see how they would perform in other mice. As far as the QC goes, there is some side-to-side play here on the switches, and there's no mechanism here to prevent that in the middle. Pre and post travel is there with a little more post than I like to see, but honestly in use, as I mentioned, not a problem. Perfectly spammable. I would say they do become like a medium actuation here at the top of the button. And I will say the G23 V1 and V2 both had slightly more defined comfort grooves here than on like the standard GPX or other GPX clones, which is something that I very much appreciate. Moving on to the scroll wheel, I'll pause for a second to admire the awesome design, but beyond that, the rubber feels high quality. The scroll itself is very light but has defined steps, and the click is medium light actuation and very spammable. No complaints here. The side buttons are pill shaped, very similar to the GPX, except for unsurprisingly, these side buttons are much better than the GPX. They rebound very well, yet they're still tactile and easy to spam. There's a bit of side play here, but nothing that'll bother you in game. And these buttons themselves, you're not sinking the shell barely at all, so we have also very high quality side buttons that I thoroughly enjoyed using. Coming to the bottom of the mouse, this is interesting. So, my one complaint about this mouse in reality is that I wish the skates had come unapplied, because they do come with 3 sets of skates. There are these standard stock skates here that I use the majority of the time I was testing the mouse. They're very similar to the Lambsview stock skates these days, if not a little bit slower. You can see there's no adhesive around the edges. They're very high quality, thick, rounded. They're not too slow. Pretty much exactly what I'd like for in a stock skate. They also provide for you the skates that I have applied, and then another version that's very similar, but also has these sort of like stepping stone pattern here. It looks like I'm sort of watching the Flintstones almost. It looks very similar to the honeycomb skates that you got on the T-Evolution Terra, and I'll be honest, I did not test these because I'm assuming the experience is very similar. Basically, the honeycomb pattern on the Terra felt fine. I got used to it over time. I didn't like it at first. It was a bumpier ride. It felt more texture. It did give a slightly higher sense of control, but in the end, not something that I really preferred, and I assume this is very similar. I can also assume these are pretty speedy. Based on the performance of these skates are really good, which again is why I wish the other ones came unapplied. You can just put these on. They're still thick, very well rounded, high quality, and they honestly remind me exactly of X-Ray Pad Jades. These are very quick, which is what I prefer in a skate. You're sliding in and out of micro adjustments very quickly, very smoothly with very minimal resistance. The glide slides right across this pad. Even the blitz, we're going straight across the pad, removing some of that dynamic friction. And honestly, the fact that they're dyed to match the colorway here is also sick. As much as you don't often see the bottom of the mouse, I love that touch. So overall, stock skates great, extra skates, just a good inclusion to begin with, and high quality. They're knocked out of the park here. 2 more things: sensor right in the center. Also interesting, you can change both the DPI and the pulling rate by moving this over here and then pressing this button, which to me seems like a low effort, pretty cool inclusion. Coming to the coating, this reminds me exactly of the V1. It is very rubberized, very grippy. I'm gonna pause right now. because people are going to ask. Yes, this side ridge from the Superlight is present on this mouse. Anyway, great coating. It's sort of a mouse that I can use even without grip tape if I want to. If you really look, it will show a very slight amount of fingerprints that you can pick up maybe like right here on the mouse, but not a fingerprint magnet in any way. It feels like a really good rubberized coating. 9 out of 10 for me, and I think it will be really good for most people's hands. Lastly, coming to build integrity, you can tell that the weight difference slightly affected this, but not really in a negative way. There's a little bit of side flex if you really push, but nothing you see in game and nothing I wouldn't expect on a mouse of this weight. Same with the bottom here, but there's no flex to be detected anywhere else on the mouse, so this is exactly up to the standards of build quality for mice in this weight range, and gets a complete pass from me. Something you want to take note of, and credit to I'm Nightmare on Twitter, this mouse will slam click if you have the debounce set to below 8 milliseconds. It's not something that I ever run to with my style of play. I never slam the mouse down hard enough to cause that, but for example, if I had this set at 0 milliseconds to bounce, it would actually slam double click if I was trying to make it happen. Not an issue for me, but if you're someone who uses your mouse in that way, you want to take note of that. So as I've cracked the mouse open here, a few interesting things. We do have the side buttons mounted inside here, so you can see these are the main buttons moving, and as they come back up, they come to rest here on 2 little tiny pieces of foam for each switch. There's also this piece of foam here, the cylindrical piece, mounted in the center of the mouse, potentially for sound considerations based on their claims of the gasket mounting. And then to the bottom shell, when I disassembled this, there were 5 screws to take apart, and there was annoyingly a sticker over the center screw after removing the skates. The skates did come off very cleanly without much effort. And then you can get a look here at the new custom collab switches between Incat and Huano, as well as the 300 mAh battery, and just a general look at how this mouse is constructed on the interior. I will do some comparisons here to the GPX itself and other clones, but I'm not going to go into full detail because there will be a top GPX clone updated video coming out very soon. And on that note, if you've enjoyed the video so far and you're looking forward to that video coming out, please subscribe and leave a like. It's much appreciated. So I'm just going to do a quick rundown of what I think the strengths of each of these mice are. So the GPX2, main strength, sensor implementation, Logitech customer service and warranty, and there's something to me about these clicks, even though they're opticals, that are very, very satisfying, very, very tactile, and I do really enjoy them for what it's worth. I know some people don't like them because they're a little bit stiffer on the Superlight 2. They may prefer a Superlight 1, but to each their own. Beside that, I mean, the scroll wheel is very good. It's very quiet and spammable, so if that's your thing, that's awesome. But as you know, the side buttons stink. The build integrity is fine, but it's not amazing. The stock skates, again, thin, kind of crappy, and the fact they changed them from the 1 to the 2, pretty scummy move from Logitech. And the coating is there, it's just fine. So really not many standout features on the GPX2 itself, especially with the price tag. The M chose A7, this is the Pro, but also the Ultra. It has the Almond opticals, and they're very light and spammable, so if that's what you're looking for, a very light actuation with the optical switches, the A7 is probably your choice. That's why I usually use to differentiate it. It also has solid build integrity, but I really do not like, as you can see here, I haven't used this recently, I don't like these slow black PTFE stock skates. I don't like the fact that the buttons on the side here are not coated. I will say though, the coating on this, really close to the G23 V2 in quality. It's pretty grippy and pretty rubberized. I actually would prefer this one a little bit more, but it's solid, and I think most people might prefer it to that of the A9 and the GPX2, which are very, very similar. The HK A9 Ultra itself, which I declare the best GPX clone, has a very strong side button implementation that matches almost the exact design. Not quite here at the GPX2. It also has Omron opticals that are pretty light and spammable, but a little more tactile than that of the A7. So if you're not looking for the absolute lightest experience, but still pretty spammable and tactile, the A9 here is a good choice. There isn't much of a differentiation here for scroll wheel on these mice, but I will say a nice feature of this is that it came with a good pair of stock skates and then another pair of aftermarket skates. They are pretty high quality. They're a little bit thinner than like a super high quality skate, or for example, the skates you get on the Incat G23 V2, but these are also speedy, close to, if not akin to, Jade's as well. This mouse also has a solid coating, not amazing, like I said, very, very similar to the GPX2, and I enjoy that the side buttons are also coated, and the build integrity is exactly what you'd expect from this price range in this mouse. It's very good, on par if not better than the GPX2, and pretty similar to all the mice in this comparison. So then, based on that right now, what do I say is the best GPX clone? Did the A9 Ultra get dethroned? Yes. I'm going to update my guidance and say that the Incat G23 V2 is the best GPX clone you can get right now. The price tag, at least that I'm seeing on AliExpress, is currently sub $40 for the non-pro version in the summer sale, which is absolutely absurd, and that's before coupons or 25% Rakuten cash back, which is probably a one-day thing, but anyway. And the pro version sits in the, I believe, low to mid $50 range. We'll see what it comes out at on MechKeys. That means you're going to pay less for this than you would for the HK A9 Ultra, which I declared the best clone previously. You also get access to this absolutely sick colorway. I think the coating on this is superior to all the other mice here. The scroll wheel may be the weak point in that it's not standout, but it's definitely good, not bad in any way. The fact that you get 3 different sets of skates, that the stock skates applied are really good, and that these are almost like extra pad Jades, along with these textured skates, just let you tinker, play around, and get the exact experience you want. And then honestly, the absolute standout feature of this mouse for me is the clicks. I almost always prefer Omron opticals, but lately these have been my favorite switch to use. They're almost like the Omron optical mechanical switches in that they're so light and spammable with such great rebound, yet so tactile and not cheap feeling. So props to Incat and working with Huano to get these switches made and into their GPX clone. I think that was a brilliant it move, and it was one of the things that really sold me on this mouse. So again, I'll go through and rank these mice all in an upcoming video as far as my tier list for GPS clones. But right now, if you want to go out, pick up the best one. Yes, it might seem that he's just picking the latest mouse he reviewed as the best GPS clone. He always does that. Maybe that's just because they keep getting better. And if you watch my previous tier list of the GPS clones, I really wanted to give the G23 the top spot, but it was just too heavy for me. And they resolved that and even made some improvements in this mouse. So props to Incot, you have stolen the show. As far as my overall experience with this mouse, I don't have too much more to say. We know from my previous review and also from checking Tech Power Up that the Incot sensors have very good performance, and that checked out in both my mouse tester testing as well as my in-game experience with this mouse. Obviously, I was only able to test on 1K because I have the non-pro version. As much as I don't love the GPX shape, and I honestly, outside of my videos, don't use the GPX clones or the GPX itself that much, I found myself wanting to use this mouse over other mice while I was testing it. I think that comes down to a combination of the coating, the awesome clicks. Believe me, guys, you really want to get a hold of this mouse just to try these out. I'm very, very curious what other people think. And lastly, I'm just a sucker for a good colorway. And honestly, the skates, the white side buttons, the scroll wheel really brings it all together. This mouse looks absolutely sick. I don't have any other mice with this exact colorway in my collection, and I'll be hanging on this for a long while and using it. And beyond that, yeah, I mean, a quick apology for continuing to cover every single GPS clone that comes out. There are 11 billion of them. A lot of them are less interesting these days, but this one in particular piqued my interest, and I'm glad I checked it out because it is a winner. So this mouse does have a WebDriver, and I would say actually this is the weakest part of the mouse. It's kind of jank, as in the UI is just really ugly. And I did have one issue where I had all the settings set, and I came back in this WebDriver, and it just didn't reflect my settings. And in order to get it to reflect, I had to change something, and then it applied all of the default settings. So that was kind of annoying. Without doing that, the mouse did keep the settings at all times and worked just fine. But just something to note there. So as you can see, the software does the job, has all the settings you can want. It's just a little bit janky. I also feel as if I'd be a fool to talk about these switches that much without giving you a quick sound test. Did we achieve the advertised 47 ± 3 sub 50 gram weight? The answer is not even remotely close. Almost disturbingly, this mouse comes in at 53.2 grams, which is fine for weight. That's not heavy by any means, but like, wow, that's quite the lie there. Clearly they meant 47 ± 3 was 50 grams without the skates, and then with the skates we got to 53. So yeah, I don't love that, I'll be honest. But to be fair, in the scheme of things, that is still the latest GPX clone, lighter than the GPX itself as well. So hey, not bad. Just don't lie about it. Measurement wise, I'm clocking 63.7 millimeters for the max backplay here, which is slightly larger than the GPX, which comes in closer to 63 millimeters. And that's a theme across this mouse. A majority of it is just a little bit larger. The height is the same. This very imprecise length measurement is about a ½ millimeter longer than the GPX, which checks with the ELA shapes and advertised length. And again, it's just a very ever so slightly larger GPX. In hand, it still feels like a GPX, but just something to note. So that about wraps up for my thoughts on the Incot G23 V2. That was a mouthful, and this mouse was a handful in the best way possible. Incot knocked it out of the park in almost every aspect of this mouse, which will now be my de facto recommendation for a GPS clone when people come asking, only with the caveat of the optical versus mechanical switch debate. Don't forget to come back soon and check out my new top GPS clone video, and please subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter at DasherZach, join up my Discord server, check out the Mousecast podcast, and with that, we'll see you.